What's up, guys? Mari and Jerome here from the Bonsai Supply.
And today we have a special episode because it's Valentine's Day. So we are going to show you an activity that you can do with your significant other.
Yes, so we are going to fuse multiple trunks together to become one tree, very much like marriage.
And for today's project, I picked this heart-shaped pot, container from the Dollar Tree, just because I feel in the spirit and because Jerome can draw some holes to make it a pot.
Yeah, so you can actually use really any pot for this project, but since it is, of course, Valentine's Day, we chose a heart-shaped pot. Since it doesn't have drainage holes at the bottom, we're just going to drill some.
And that's why we'll also have some string and wire to put on those holes.
We have some tapes to actually tie the trees together so that they can fuse.
And of course we have the trees, so the seedlings.
Yes, so these are Japanese Arakawa maples or rough bark maples. And the seedlings, they range anywhere from 1 year old to 3 years old.
Yes, and we have the bonsai tools that will help us along the way. Some cut paste in case we make big cuts.
We also have a water mister. It is important that you don't let the seedlings dry out as you work on this composition. So we're just going to mist the roots and keep them moist.
And our last but not least ingredient is our bonsai soil mix. So let's get started. Let's get our aprons on. Let's get it on.
Let's get it on. Alright, so the first step, I'm going to go ahead and drill some drainage holes in the bottom of this container, while Mari is going to separate the seedlings by thickness and size. Because once we put them together, and in order for them to fuse together nicely, we want to have the thickest and the tallest trees in the center, and then build the rest of the trees around that one trunk so that they can easily fuse together then. And we're going to tape them together so that they can fuse together. And fusion is literally where all these trunks are being pressed together, and through compression they start to grow into each other and become one. Alright, so now that I drilled some holes and put a screen in the bottom, we're going to go ahead and put the trees together. So she separated them in large and smaller trees. So why don't you grab the large trees like that, perfect. And now what we want to make sure is that they are all nicely pushed together so that there's not enough space. So that there's no space in between the trees, is what I'm trying to say. So we kind of are going to tie them together firmly like that. And now we're going to build the entire tree with the smaller ones. We have them on the outside, on the perimeter. Exactly. Just like that. Perfect. Alright, so you're going to hold them. And so we use electrical tape. You can also use string or something like that. But you want to make sure that you use something that's kind of flexible. Like the electrical tape is a little flexible. When you tie trees together, and once they start to fuse and start to expand, if you don't have something that gives way, you actually scar the entire trunk. So that's why you want to use something that's flexible like this. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to leave the sticky side to the outside and use the non-sticky side on the inside. Alright, perfect. And so you want to make sure that they are really firmly pressed together like that.
Strong foundation.
That's the number one recipe for a good marriage. Strong foundation. And by the way, you can do this fusion with any type of tree. I mean, there are a few trees that you probably cannot do this with, but you can do this with ficuses, elms, really any deciduous tree. I'm trying to think of something you can't fuse. Oh, dwarf jades you cannot fuse together.
Uh-huh.
So that would not be.
Well, they grow fast anyway, so I guess.
Exactly.
Okay. Is this like? Is also this like a good species for this specifically?
Maples are a very good species for fusing them together, especially tridents or Japanese. There we go.
Alright. Doesn't matter this.
No, this is perfect.
Okay.
So if you have some branches down below, that's perfectly fine.
Okay, so you want to tie it in more than one spot.
Yes, and really firmly together. And so the cool thing about this is we just took some 3-year-old seedlings, pushed them all together, and once they fuse, it's going to look like a 10-year-old tree, you know?
Yeah.
So that's really cool. So we're going to go one more higher up here if we can. What do you think? Yeah, I'd say about
This
here.
side? You think that? Okay.
Actually, some of the seedlings are not tall enough, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is actually perfect because the shorter seedlings and the thinner ones, they finish right up here. So we would not want to tie these together up here also. Now what we're going to do is we're actually going to pot this with the good bonsai soil, and then we're just going to let the top grow for like 2 to 3 years uncontrolled, and just keep an eye on the tape and wait until these trees start to fuse. So we don't want to cut anything down here because we want to gain momentum and have them fuse together as fast as possible. All right, so you ready? All right. So next I'm going to choose some longer wire, which we're going to use as tie-down wire. And we're just going to use one wire, like this, push it through the bottom. And this is the tie-down wire is just so that once the tree is in place, that we can tie it into the place and it doesn't wobble too much or that it falls out if the wind blows a little too much. Because that could, spray the trees, good idea, because that could really damage the trees. And so we want to make sure that they can grow strong, and that's how we tie them down. So just a little aluminum wire through the bottom like that, and now we can go ahead and tie it down. So if you want to go ahead and pour some bonsai soil into our heart-shaped pot. Wonderful. Alright, so Mari poured the soil into a little mound, and I'm going to take the seedlings and just set them on top and then just wiggle them down into the soil. And the reason why we wiggle them down like that is because we want to make sure that the soil goes into all the nooks and crannies down here. So this is perfect. And you want to leave about, you want to make sure that there's like a 1/2 inch to 1 inch of space on top, so that after we tie down the trees into position, that we can pour some fresh soil on top. So now as you can see, the trees are in here pretty firmly, so they don't wobble too much back and forth if the wind blows or a bird crash lands into the tree, so that now the tree can grow and establish really healthy and strong roots.
And now we're gonna use the rest of the soil to cover the top layer, and we're gonna work the air pockets.
So you can just use regular chopsticks, like from the last time you had sushi. Keep your chopsticks, you can use those. We just have aluminum chopsticks. And then what we're gonna do is we just drive the chopsticks into the soil and wiggle them back and forth. And we just wanna make sure that we work out all of the air pockets. Now air pockets are especially bad because they actually store too much air and water in those sections, and that's really bad for the tree. So we want to make sure that the soil is nice and firm. Alright, so now that the tree is firmly tied down into the pot, all the air pockets have been worked out, this tree is now ready to be watered, kept outside, and we're going to keep a close eye on it. Then once it starts to grow, we want to make sure that we well water it, so we don't let the soil dry out. We're going to fertilize it well and just watch it grow and fuse together just like our love for each other.
Yes, and we hope you enjoy this little activity and that you try it with your significant other, and let us know in the comments below what you think about this activity or what we should do next. We hope you have a happy Valentine's Day, that you like this video, you subscribe, and we'll see you guys next time.